You're what up, YouTube? It's your boy Wabi from the Politically Correct podcast, and I'm just gonna make a short video of the explanation of favorite artists. You see, when people ask you who's your favorite artist, do you really give them the right answer? Because I'll tell you the honest truth, I really now that I'm a student of music, I give them the right answer because now I know how I truly feel inside. But I remember when I was in high school and I didn't really know much about music, and I used to claim stuff like fallacies, like Ye's my favorite rapper. And it doesn't sound crazy when you hear it because he's a prolific artist and he's had all of these number one albums and 21 Grammy family and all that stuff. But to somebody who actually knows music, that is kind of wild. That's a wild take to say. But, you know, I was just a young kid at the time. I just understood that Ye was my favorite artist at the time. Oh, still is. And I liked his music the best. It seems that simple, right? But it's not that simple because there's categories to this. Like my favorite rapper, as I've figured out, is Nas. Nas is my favorite rapper because of his lyrical, spherical geniusness. Like Nas can go any riff, any flow, how fast you want him, how slow you want him. He raps about anything. I've seen Nas rap about a situation backwards. Like you gotta listen to Rewind. Rewind is so tough because he's rapping like a scene out of a movie, but he's rapping it backwards. So the end ends up in the beginning, and the beginning starts at the end, which is absolutely insane how he thought of that. But that's why he's my favorite rapper, is because of the creativity that he has as far as rapping, as far as lyricism. He's my favorite lyricist of all time because he's the most creative, point blank, period. But with Ye, he's my favorite artist of all time. You see, that's number two, artist. He's my favorite artist of all time. The way Ye can construct an album, the way he can roll out an album, the way he can grab publicity and make y'all either want to listen to the album or shun him forever. The way he can make you feel something, that's, to me, he's the best at doing that. And that's why he's my favorite artist. But then when you get to the more technical stuff, like uh, being a musician, Ye is pretty close, but then you have Al Green, who's the biggest and the best instrument to ever be made. He's like, he can still sing from what he's today from what he could 50 years ago, 40 years ago. So it's like, to me, Al Green is the best instrument. So therefore, he's the best musician. And then I got number four, which is Drake, who's to me the most successful. Like if you go to a party, a club, you going to a female's house, who you listening to? You gotta listen to Drake. Drake's the most safest thing. If I listen to Nas, somebody might be like, oh, well, I don't like his beats. If I listen to J. Cole, someone might call him boring. If I listen to Ye, well, that might be too controversial. If I listen to Jay-Z, well, it might sound a little too corny. But with Drake, he's like that porridge in the middle with the three bears and Goldilocks and all that. He's just right. He's just right. Nobody's gonna say, oh, you're listening to Drake. I mean, they might say you're in your bag right now because you listen to Drake, but that's why you just gotta listen to some of his harder shit. Like, uh, what is it? One bird and two stones? Two birds and one stone? Yeah, two birds and one stone. That's my favorite track from Drake. If you listen to stuff like that, then ain't nobody really gonna be calling you soft. But you know, even with that, people love Drake's soft stuff anyway. So Drake's the most safest. That's why to me he's the most successful. And the stats show. Even though some people might say, "Oh, well, older artists don't have the same luxury he has with platforming and stuff," but you're just gonna act like he didn't have hits from 2013 to all the way from 2020. Like, that's the Drake effect. There was literally something called the Drake stimulus, where if you somehow feature in a Drake song, you're gonna get some buzz, and that was a real thing. Nobody's was getting hits off of Drake. So Drake's the most successful, even with him losing this battle to Kendrick. It just gives me the it gives me the it makes me realize that I'm right about my Mount Rushmore, because Drake obviously wasn't beating no Kendrick at no lyricism battle. He's not a lyricist, he's not your favorite rapper. But if Drake drops a real album in the next few months, will it be the biggest album of the year? Most likely, because that's how Drake is. If he just drops a song next week, will it be a number one? Most definitely, because that's how Drake is. Everything he makes, it turns to gold. So, you got Drake as my number 4. And then now I gotta add some people in. I'm thinking about adding people like Quentin Miller, maybe Cole. I don't know. See, I gotta find a different categories, because what I just realized today is Mount Rushmore used to be the 6 grandfathers from the Native Americans until some white people colonized, obviously, the Native Americans, and then they carved a whole bunch of 4 white people on the 6 grandfathers, and that's how Mount Rushmore was made. So I need to really get 6, but right now, because I just got that information, I have 4, and those are my 4: Ye, Nas, Al Green, and Drake. And you gotta take in consideration that I'm a very young man too. So 3 out of 4 of these guys were technically in my era. So maybe that's a little bit of bias, but that's the point when it's your favorites. When it's your favorites, there is no right or wrong answer. If somebody told me that their favorite artist was NBA YoungBoy, I'm not gonna respect it. Like, I'm not gonna put you on my podcast and make you expand on it, because I think that's kind of a trash opinion. But that's your opinion. I can't say that it's wrong, but I'm gonna say it's wrong though. I don't really mess with too much of that. But music is so amazing. It's like it doesn't even have to sonically be great. Like, there's just so much things in music, especially nowadays, that they just end up doing that just makes it all the much better. Like, all it has to be is catchy and I enjoy it. All it has to be is make complete and total sense and I will enjoy it. Like Scoop Whoopity Poop. Like, when you get the storyline on that beat, you understand why it's so awesome. But it sonically sucks though. But that's the beauty about music, is that it doesn't really necessarily have to quote unquote sound good, but if it has some other reasoning or preference to it, then it's definitely going to make somebody, if it's going to make somebody feel something, then it's definitely a successful piece of art. Music isn't just for your ears. Music is for your feel. Music is for your eyes. Music is for your life. Music is a way of life. There's just so much wisdom that I gained from listening to music. That's why we love it so much. That's why I love it so much. That's why I'm going to be continuing to listen to it. I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't listen to slow old things. But now that I'm matured a lot, I'll be listening to classical music now because I just found when I became a student of music, I found this new love for music to where it's not all about the best producer, the best singer, the best rapper. It's about who's the most creative and what do you do with that time. I don't like music. I don't like songs that waste time. It wasted 30 seconds. I like songs that from start to finish, I'm either bumping, I'm listening to, or I'm feeling. If it doesn't do any of those three things for me, to me, I think it's trash. You know, and it's crazy how I say this, how it's so how you can connect people with music all different types of ways when you know it's very hard for me to get into newer things sometimes. Because I the subject matter be a little off to me, but as long as you're diving and dipping and diving into music, you're gonna find something that you like. Like I remember a lot of people, especially my age, be like, "Well, there's nothing, there to listen to and stuff this year." And every year there's something to listen to. Every year there's an artist that you like. There's a song out there, you just ain't find it yet. So just keep that in mind. Whenever you're listening to music, give these local artists a chance, especially. And that's one thing I need to start doing. Uh, honestly, is to stop listening to these big, huge artists I already know are nice, like Ye and J. Cole and all this, and start listening to smaller local artists that I think are talented. You know, I don't think we take enough time to strengthen the local artists, and that's why we get a whole bunch of the same stuff. So just keep that in mind whenever you're listening to music. That famous people are really good at making music. That's why they have the money, but these local artists are doing stuff too. So with that in mind, God bless you and God bless America. It's Wabi. Peace.